Don't hesitate to contact us or anybody in the team. I hope you have a wonderful experience. I know that there's some really top academics in this conference, and that's what this university is all about, and that's what we've been working for. And actually we work every day to be able to have these opportunities to meet up with people that they are the experts in the field. And this was one of the opportunities we had, to get them all together and to get to know the way we think, the way we develop, and the way we do business here.
It is a real pleasure to host you here in our 17th McGill International Entrepreneurship Conference. Chile is a middle-income country with tremendous opportunities for future growth, development, and prosperity, with social justice and fairness for all their citizens. However, this growth would not be possible without fostering innovation, entrepreneurship, and rapid internationalization of its small firm sector. These new forms of international entrepreneurship strategies and how they relate to public policies will be a key topic for discussion during our conference. One of the more than 40 papers and panels that will be presented in this conference, some will have a direct impact on business practices and government policy. This is one of the reasons we invite Eduardo Guillermo, Vice President of Corfo, to be one of our keynote speakers for today's opening ceremony. Other papers of our conference will indirectly influence the business world when the knowledge is passed on to our students, who will be able to later apply what they have learned, as our research has the potential to have a direct impact on firms and industry-specific levels. This is why our very distinguished academic speakers will present today the panel titled Present and Future of International Entrepreneurship Research.
In Chile, entrepreneurship programs started really in 1999. Before that, most of the focus on public policy was in innovation. And we will continue promoting the SAF program, which is a very good result, but we cannot have incubators in each city. Then we are developing satellites in other cities with a lighter scheme that we call co-work space with fab labs, digital labs, and we're launching at least 15 of them all over the country. And finally, we have done a study to identify a group of cities that had some characteristics, that have creative industries, artists, music, nice architecture, good school of design, good school of architecture, conservatory, national events in culture.
I'm an entrepreneurship scholar, and so in my opinion, IE, when you're in entrepreneurship meetings, IE has had legitimacy there for quite some time. But there's something that's really troubling to me, and that is if you look at the entrepreneurship conferences, IE papers, and by that I mean kind of a count of the number of papers and panels, it seems to be a little less prominent than it is. Now, I don't know why. One thing that I've thought about is we all have limited travel budgets, and there are just a huge number of conferences on IE. I know I go to actually usually a couple a year where there are conferences on IE. Maybe IE scholars are using their travel funds to go to these conferences and not to the mainstream entrepreneurship conferences. That's one theory. Another theory is entrepreneurship is an area that has exploded and has brought in scholars from many different disciplines. And so perhaps all of those papers are crowding out the prominence of IE just a little bit. And I'm sure you could probably come up with more theories.
All right, and my question today is, this research that we're doing, is it something that we can consider to be legitimate? No. So the question is, how do I come to that conclusion? IE research is something that, as Tricia says, I think it is in the golden age, and we've seen a lot of really exciting stuff happen in the last few years as momentum has been gained in mainstream journals, across countries, with lots of young scholars. There's a lot of doctoral students here, a lot of people that are maybe coming in new from other areas of business research and saying, I'm a little interested. Like, Greg, you're a good example of this, interested in knowing more about international entrepreneurship. And there was a study that was done, or a paper that was written, a really interesting and influential paper, I think, by Hamburg and Chen, looking at a number of new academic fields, and they were focusing specifically on strategy. And their argument is that the new academic fields are advanced through the process of being different and communicating that differentiation, mobilization, getting it moving, getting people involved, and the issue of being legitimate and seen to be legitimate in the eyes of parallel and the complementary disciplines.
So our first two presenters have sort of laid the challenge for you, and what I'm going to do, and I think that to me is going to be following me, is perhaps give you some ideas of different paths that we could take that would address some of the challenges that have been identified. So in my case, I basically want to do is start by arguing that we have built a very large body of knowledge about something that is actually pretty small. So most of the papers that we read are really about internationalization patterns. They're actually quite descriptive, and they're about antecedents, they're about outcomes, they're about moderators and mediators, but they're really about what does one internationalization path look like compared to another. We've kind of described that today.
The two questions, number one is there theoretical or even practical and empirical evidence to suggest that what we already studying has become more complex, different phenomena are impacting it, and in a sense I want to suggest that there is a concept that we should consider, and that is life cycle. Not product life cycles, but a firm life cycle. At the very beginning, just starting up, that's very, very entrepreneurial, eventually becomes a larger company. That is really the theory of the firm. We go from entrepreneur theories into theories of the firm, and then eventually we go to if our companies are successful and internationalize immediately, then they become multinational. So in a sense, international entrepreneurship now is bridging across startups, entrepreneur theories, growth theory, theory of the firm, and eventually the IB. So my message is that there is really plenty of complexities. We are dealing with them without really acknowledging that the field is becoming complex. My colleagues before me referred to a lot of different conferences. I can add to that. In our school, actually, the strongest research is done by psychologists. They're looking at the makeup of entrepreneurs, how they decide, how they pay attention, how they allocate things that also Rob talked about. And I dare to say none of us, including me, has gone to any international psychology conference. Perhaps most of us are not even reading their papers. Perhaps they are going to take us somewhere. So, but that is one side of this equation that at the very beginning entrepreneurs decide, and entrepreneurs are critical parts of human decision making, if you like. I don't want to add to the complexity. Decision making is entry, but with another lens.